welcome back to another lap guide video. My name's Bart and today we're taking the FIF4 car on iRacing around the Road Atlanta circuit. Let's get to the hot lap. Alright, so heading down through the last quarter onto the main straight of Road Atlanta now. So turn one, tricky corner, not much runoff. We don't really need to be all the way on the exit curb here. A bit of a weird corner in that way. I know you might go, what? You mean use all the track, basic racing line stuff? Yeah, well, we'll see with this corner. Not that simple because we've got to prepare for the next corner and also just the way the camber is as well. But the first part of this, if you want to gain a little bit of extra time, you know, you won't get off track if you just dip the wheels in the grass here and then use this little bit of tarmac, this little patch here, this service road out from the these other pits on the left-hand side. Just use that and that'll help open the corner up for you. The reason why we do this is because if you're in line with the white line, where the white line is normally, it actually quite considerably narrows up your entry to the corner. You can see that here. If you go there versus there and turn in. So that's the first thing. Just kind of, I aim there. That's kind of what I think of is, okay, where am I going to turn in from? Turning in from there. I aim there down the straight. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is, it's a corner where it's all about just carrying speed, right? You actually maintain 6 in this car. So with that in mind, if you over slow, so if you brake a little bit too much, you're going to lose a lot of lap time. You bog a lot. And you also got an uphill exit after this. I've tried 5th, it just doesn't, it kind of just slows the car down too much. But because we're in 6th gear here, yeah, like I said, really important to maintain the speed into the corner, low powered car. So yeah, make sure you do that through here. Like soft brake, really soft, like 20, 15%. Don't go in too early. That's the other thing, and that's part of the reason why I want to open up as much as possible. If you're in early here, you get punished quite badly. You get a lot of understeer and the compression that we'll get to in a second, and that means the front will just push you out wide towards that exit curb that we talked about. And you'll end up very out of position for the next section, which is much more important for lap time. So you can use the inside curb here, not really a problem with that. It can help turn the car. If you use more than a little bit of it, it actually hurts you. Also, this car kind of bottoms on this bump and the compression a bit, so that's a bit annoying, but it kind of just happens. You can hear that there as we go through there, that fantastic iRacing sound. So pick up a little bit of throttle now, just kind of as you go towards the inside here, kind of just pick up a little bit of throttle. Should have the tires, like I said, either on the inside curb or on the white line, or on this yellow, I should say, line, pretty much. Force yourself out to the left-hand side. Once again, pretty standard stuff with this car. Let's try and reduce the steering lock while we're on throttle. Just try and reduce as much as possible. I know you're going to say, well, there's a bit more track there. There's not much grip out there. And if you go a little bit wider, you kind of end up taking extra distance and having to work it back for the right and the left kink coming up. So again, you don't have to be all the way on the exit of that curb, I find anyway. As long as you're near this bit and you carry good speed, it's more important than being, I think as long as you're over this kind of crack in the road here, rather than being all over the exit curb, it can actually drag you off the track and often end you just like ending a race, and it's basically worth no lap time. Okay, so full throttle now up the hill. Positioning nice and early, quite difficult to see over this crest. Your best reference is actually, you can see I'm in line with this little hut here, this marshal's post. So use that as a reference, is pretty good. And that's when you're going to start turning left, go over the crest here, into the, I really call this the second corner, because to me it's probably turn 3 or 4 at this point. This is the one that is going to define the speed for your whole next sector. This is potentially, along with the final corner, or final true corner, the most important part of the track for lap time in this car. So we've got to make sure we get this right. And there's a few things to it. The first thing is obviously we want to be on throttle pretty early, but before that, we need to carry good speed into the corner, and we want to use all the curb to be able to do that. So where that starts is here. We're on this left-hand curb. If you're on this grass too early, it'll kind of pick you up and throw you out to the right-hand side. So being too early can be punished here. Keep that in mind. Also, if you go too far right, you'll never get it back left in time. It's tricky to get the balance right here, because you should be full throttle pretty much until you hit the brake in this car. In a GT car, maybe not, but in this, yeah, 100%. So braking, you want to basically have the car fully on the left-hand side. You see where this white line is, where the curb ends on the left-hand side? That's where you want to have the car just to open up this right-hander as much as possible. Use all this curb here on the brakes. That's pretty much where you start braking as well, as once you get hooked on this curb. Braking on the curb, kind of a medium, let's say, brake, 40%-ish on the softer side. Kind of a mound brake shape, not too aggressive with the car. We're not really trying to, a lot of the corners are like this here, we're not really trying to slam on the brakes and really stop the car quickly. We're trying to control the attitude of the car and not upset it, okay? So that's more important, and carrying good corner speed. Down to 5th gear. This 5th gear change should really help you get turned in. Very tricky, this corner. I get sometimes quite upset with the inconsistency here, because it's really hard to see. Really, really hard to see the apex and where you want to line the car up with. So if you want to take as much curve as possible without going off track and kind of carrying speed, you're pretty much going to have your left tires on the yellow line. So yeah, it's quite a bit of curve. You're aiming to put the middle of the car about over here. So like I said, to do that, we're turning in late. We're carrying lots of speed in 5th. You can kind of, your best reference is, I found anyway, the first thing you can see, it's even a bit harder in copy cam to see, is this cone. So just trying to be in line with this cone here. Is roughly where you're going to put the middle of the car. So it gives you, it's the best thing you can see, but it's still quite a blind corner. So down to 5th gear, not a very hard brake. When you get on the throttle, be fairly aggressive. So I was quite quick to go into full. That's just because you need to hook it up once you get on the curb. This is pretty perfect in terms of taking the curb here. Like I said, left tires, yellow line as much as you can take. It really hooks the car around. This angle I'm getting as well, where I'm not in too early, also really quick. You can see the landing was brutal. This car does not like these curbs, and you can see it kind of gets upset on the landing here. That pushes me out, slides the car a little bit. Fortunately, I'm able to just about keep it on the road. It doesn't lose me too much time. I've actually carried a lot of speed through here. So, like I said, the main thing, even though I had a bit of a moment on the exit, it's not important, because I gained so much time from carrying so much speed through the right, and that's the most important thing, yeah? So, over this left-hand curb on the exit, just trying to control the throttle now. Manage that. You should be on this left curb anyway. Probably not having the floor of the car over, but your left tires at least. It should feel very on the limit. Forced onto that left curb. Then just try and be smooth with the steering, get to full throttle. You don't need to go all the way over to here, right? Where this white line is. This is where we'd be in a GT car. Don't need this in this car. Just shorten the distance. Go back to mid-track a bit, maybe 2/3 to the left, where this kind of line is in the road. Between the middle lane and the left lane, try and have the car around there at best, and then just be smooth with the steering. Not really worth bringing it all the way over, just taking extra distance to that point and working the wheel too much. Be smooth down the hill, as we talked about. Don't need to take that curb, we'll just slow you down. With this one, we take a little bit of this left curb. The reason why we're doing that is just to help prepare for this next bit coming up. Once again, this track's all about preparing through these long corners. So bring the car over to the left, nice and late on the curb, keeping it on the white line on the exit of this section. Just a little bit there. Should be full throttle the whole time through there, no problems. And then preparing ourselves for this left-hander. The big thing here that people get wrong is they go on this curb too early, or they don't take the entry curb at all because it's too bumpy, they think. It is a mess if you try and ride here. We're trying to get our car in line with this section or parallel with this part of the curb. So think about facing that way more, right? The car facing this direction, which I'll get to in a second. As you were pointing out, basically towards these poles over here, this gravel trap this way, rather than pointing into the corner at this point. That's just trying to prepare ourselves better for this corner. So please do that. If you get that angle right and you're soft with the brakes, you'll have a much easier time here. Don't try to rush the brakes and brake too late. It's not going to help you. Not about that. It's about carrying speed, rolling speed through the corner. Getting the car nice and settled in the entry. So you won't be able to slam on the brakes here because the wheel just locks on the curb and all these bumps and uneven braking surfaces. So you just feed the brake. You can see nicely I'm about 25% brake pressure at this point. Building the pressure, just kind of controlling it. And as I come off the curb, I come out of the brake. As I start to turn in, normal practice with this car, just got to come out of that brake pedal. Just got to come out of it, use the steering lock, lean on the steering, come out of the brake, trailing in barely any brake pressure at this point. Okay, ride this curve, use as much of it as possible. This is going to help you rotate the car. So you can see I get onto it pretty aggressively, and as soon as I do, again, pre-stand in this car, hook the car up onto the inside curb, get on the throttle pedal. So very quickly up to about 80%, just squeezing that last bit. You need to force yourself with the speed you not only carry through, but also from picking up throttle. And also I'm going to recommend pick up the throttle before the car starts getting unsettled on the bumps. If you carry the speed in, like if you fire it in late and aggressive, and you get onto this curb and you haven't picked up the throttle in time, you'll just have a big moment and you'll end up spinning or off in the gravel trap or something. So get to throttle, that'll settle the car nicely. Be it almost, you can see I'm leaving the curb right at the end of the curb. Right at the end of the curbing is where you want to be leaving it. That's how we're hooking the curb here. Forcing the car quite wide. The next part is this exit's a little bit tricky. You can see the gravel. We don't really want to be in that. I'm right on the edge of using all the track here. This is no off track, by the way. You won't get off track for this. You will if you end up in that dirt. So try and avoid that. Bring the car over before that. Some people are a bit lazy here and getting off track. Easy to do, so bring it over. Apart from that, though, the only advice I give for this exit is if you're finding you're having trouble with spinning here, make sure you come off the steering lock a little bit, okay? Just come off the steering a bit. I found it's a big thing. If you're trying to fight a moment here, maybe you've had a moment earlier in the corner and that's going to cost you. You can't really do much about that. You just got to like fix what you're doing earlier in the corner. But yeah, if you're too loaded here, so you've got too much steering on when you're full throttle, then you can sometimes lose the rear on the bumps because it just kind of gets upsettled and you end up with the car like going one way, then reacting the other way. So just keep that in mind. Full throttle, nice and early, smooth on the steering. We always talk about this car. Just get the steering lock off as much as possible. Use all the curbing and bring the car back over to the left-hand side for this next right. Tricky corner, not too important in terms of lap time because the exit's very short. But medium kind of brake here. You're braking uphill, so you can actually attack it feels like you can attack the brakes quite a bit. Braking reference is pretty much this white line here. The second last one before the corner. I find it's pretty easy to judge the braking here, even though it's uphill and tighter than it looks, but just because of you got these lines that are very good references, so don't worry about that. Again, away from the white line quite early. Get into that camber. You can see it's very cambered. This next right-hander. Off the brake quite early, down to fourth gear. Get the car into the apex. You don't need to be all over the apex curb. In fact, the apex curb is not actually better than being on the inside because you can see the camber goes up here, and if we go on the curb, it's not actually as cambered, so it's not as grippy for us. It's okay to hit it, but it's not really the best thing. Just get the car into the camber, down to fourth gear. As soon as you get into fourth, you should be able to just pretty much smash the throttle pedal as much as you'll ever be able to. Because of the camber, it's like an oval. You just grip when you get on throttle here, so you can kind of just slam the throttle pedal. You're never going to have to worry about the car sliding at the rear. The only thing it's ever going to do is understeer, and the best way to avoid that is by getting to full throttle quickly. So force yourself out. You should be on the left-hand curb here, if not in line with it, pretty much all the way up to it like I am. Sometimes the curb can make you a little bit unsettled, but just get a feel for that. Braking as soon as you get straight makes it quite tricky, but yeah, pretty much braking as soon as you get straight. Not really much else for reference here. You got some bits on the track, but nothing really to look at. As per usual, will always be looking towards the apex, so it's kind of a vanishing point and it's blind, especially from cockpit cam at this point. But you're looking basically between that Michelin board and the Motul board because you're generally trying to take quite a bit of curb on this curb strike here. Although in this car you can miss it a bit, you want to be quite tight generally to this inside apex. So braking fairly hard, I'd say. Again, it's a bit of a feed. It's not like a slam. It's just feed a little bit, and then we get to about 78% brake pressure just because of the uphill nature of it, and you're kind of loaded still. Down into third gear. I think of it as a very, I mentioned it at Sebring, like a very binary type braking zone where we're kind of on and off the brake. So you see here, pretty much get to brake pressure. I sustain that same amount of brake pressure in a straight line for a little bit, and then I come off the brake and turn. So we're not really doing any combination there. Not much trail braking or anything like that. On the brake, then off the brake, and just use the wheel. If you try and hold the brake in, you'll either lose the rear or you'll slide the front. Just get off the brake, roll the speed. I like getting the braking done a little bit earlier than some people in this car at this corner, because I think if you go too late in, you just give yourself too much work to do. But if you can get off a bit earlier, roll the speed, which is where I think people lose a lot of time. You can roll quite a bit of speed in this car here. Get over this inside curb. Once again, it'll help hook the car up. Get to part throttle at this point, and then I'm able to just feed the throttle, run myself out onto the exit curb. Watch this exit curb. Please use it, but if you run the middle of the car, so where the plank is on this exit curb, it'll hurt your exit a lot. You'll bump over it, maybe get dragged into the grass. Going to cost you a lot of time in a low-powered car. Could cost you a lot of positions in a race. Please keep that in mind. That's why I'm not getting straight to full. I'm just feeding it at the start as I pick up the throttle. Then here on the straight, or pretty much a straight, just try and be smooth with the steering. We're going to be on the right-hand side for the next corner anyway, so that's why I've kind of drifted to the middle of the track. Reducing the distance, kind of just waiting here now, just slowly turning to the right, keeping it right, reducing the distance, being smooth with the wheel. Okay, so I know I'm not perfectly in line with the white line. There's a reason for that, obviously. It's not just because I felt like it. So here we're trying to actually point on a diagonal outwards because we want to use this entry curb. You could not use this entry curb and you can still be fairly quick, but if you're looking for those little bits of time in a car like this, I think it's quite useful. So I often try to point out a bit, be able to point in. Sometimes you can do it at Spa, like into the last corner and things like that. But yeah, I'd say fairly unique to this corner in this way. The entry curb's not very long. Otherwise, we'd just be on it really early, like somewhere at Brooklands at Silverstone. But in this case, we're not able to. So yeah, like I said, I'm aiming for this point. This is kind of my turn-in point. It's not exactly, but this is kind of where I'm looking. My last point on the right-hand side of the track. And then we're looking to get over here and prepare ourselves for this exit that's really important for lap time. So, first things first, I'm aiming myself to be diagonal in that direction. So pretty much we'll get onto the curb, just about here. See, just leaning my right tires at this point. You don't have to be all over the curb, because if you run a lot of it, it can actually kind of like upset the car as you brake. But you can see at this point that I've kind of just positioned the car in a way where I can use a little bit of the curbing there. Like if I was dead straight, I kind of start turning into the corner and I'd be a little bit tighter, but because I position myself diagonally in this way, I'm just able to use a little bit more of the entry there and position a little bit better, turn a little bit later, and that makes a big difference by the end of the lap. Braking is really hard. You won't hit your highest brake pressure straight away because, as you can probably see, we go from downhill braking to uphill braking. It's actually a little bit like my local track. And in this way, as you go uphill, you're going to gain more grip, especially at the front where you're using the brakes. So you're able to hit the brakes harder. So that's why you see here, I quite quickly go to about 89%, and then I feed it up, almost clipping 100% brake pressure there, and then starting to bleed out as I turn to the corner. It's not a very long braking zone, but it's heavy. So please keep that in mind. You can push the braking quite late here. Braking reference is pretty much just after this first line. Pretty good. It is a corner that you do get rewarded for being late on the brakes. Obviously, if you're too late, you'll miss the corner. But apart from that, there is quite a bit of time here, just because I think you can push the brakes harder than you think. As I said, as it starts to go uphill at this point. Look, I'm holding a lot of brake pressure. We're not far from the corner. So please keep that in mind. I'm down to fourth gear. As soon as you start turning in, get off that brake pedal. We talked about all that, but clear that brake pedal. You can cut this quite aggressively, right? So you won't get an off track here unless you have where this antenna is and where the middle of the halo is, basically here, where I've got my mouse, over the inside curb, because that's the off track range, and you've got to have half a car on that. So I'm just about okay. You can see I've got my right hand side tires on the white line as well. That's just about legal. That's pretty much as almost on the limit of what's possible for the most part there. So yeah, trying to just get over as left as possible is the most important thing here. To begin with, getting the car slowed down nicely. So we want to be slow enough that we can take this right hander pretty much flat. Maybe a very small lift, very, very small lift, just as we go through the kind of the compression on the next right. But it should basically be flat. And if you feel like it's flat, but you're having a massive moment on the exit, it's way too hard work, then maybe you need to slow this up a little bit. It should be difficult to take the right hander flat, but it shouldn't be impossible, out of control. So with that in mind, preparing the car, try and get this angle and try and get as late as possible. Like if you're in early here, the punishment is huge. So say I've got half of my car over the inside curb and I'm turning a bit earlier, maybe I'm facing in that direction then, and you just end up making this next right-hander way too tight. That's where the late braking makes a difference here. If we can delay the turn in a little bit, huge for us, huge. To get the car positioned nicely here, I'm able to get the car pointing. I'm not even on this right lane of the track. I'm all the way over here, pointing pretty much in line with this part of the track at this point. It allows me to be full throttle at this point and hold full throttle almost all the way through there. You see a very small lift. Occasionally, you'll probably have to do a small lift. If you're going to lift now. Lift in this little part of the corner. It'll just help turn the car. And when I'm saying lift, I don't mean fully off the throttle. I mean like 10, 20%. So like we're still holding like 80, 90% throttle at this point, minimum. If not, I want you flat. And that's really important for keeping the lap time up. But yeah, it all comes back to, can you get that later rotation here? Prepare the car, then you should be able to pick up the throttle quite quickly. And then just try and get the steering out as soon as you can. As soon as you get to the edge of the track, get the steering out. Bring it over to the right, over this crest, just to shorten the distance, I find. Also avoid some of the bumps on the entry to this corner. Smooth on the wheel, avoid the last inside curb, and come across the line, and that's the lap at Road Atlanta. Okay, so that takes us towards the end of the video now. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below, and you can also find the Coach Dave Academy Discord in the YouTube video description. My name's Bart, and I'll see you next week. See ya.